What's up, Internet? I'm Dan Casey, and welcome to today's episode of Nerdist News Talks Back. It's our weekly over-the-top talk show about all things pop culture, and thank you so much for joining us. On today's show, we're going to be talking all about Warner Brothers' decision to release all their 2021 movies on HBO Max and in theaters, and it keeps getting spicier with each passing moment. Plus, we've got updates on The Mandalorian, Hawkeye's Disney Plus series, Oscar Isaac in Metal Gear Solid, Elon Musk's plans for a Mars colony, and so much more. All of that plus some fighting game trivia on today's Nerdist News Talks Back. But before we get to all of that, let's meet today's awesome panel. First up, she is the author of books like Orientation, Marvel Avengers Assembly, and A Jedi You Will Be. Please welcome Preeti Chhibber.
Hi.
I'm so sad that cardboard cutout Timothy Oliphant couldn't be here today, but I understand he's been called to resolve a situation back on Tatooine.
He has to be the marshal, and I understand, but don't worry, next time he'll be here.
Yes, we'll reach out to his cardboard people, and we'll do cardboard lunch. All right. Next up, he's the founder and editor-in-chief of Geeks of Color. Please welcome Dorian Parks.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me back. Happy to be
Welcome back, dude. I'm so happy you're here. And last but not least, he is the senior editor of Nerdist and the co-host of the 5 Years Rapid, Doctor Who, The Writer's Room, and the Memory Cheats podcasts. It's Kyle Anderson.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hello, Kyle.
Hey.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, just saying hi.
All right, look, I've said hi to you too many times to count.
It's true.
All right, let's get this show on the road with a little segment that we like to call, Should You Be Wearing a Mask This Week? And the answer... Yes. I mean, look, I can't wait until the answer is no, but for the foreseeable future, you're a smart person out there, viewer at home. The answer is almost always going to be yes until the answer is no. But for the meantime, keep wearing one, be responsible, get a flu shot if you didn't get one already. Just be a healthy person, take care of yourself and take care of other people. And speaking of masks, let's shift to something a bit more breathtaking, specifically Keanu Reeves. This week marks the long-awaited release of Cyberpunk 2077, which stars Keanu Reeves as Johnny Silverhand, a rocker boy who now lives in a microchip inside your brain as some sort of radicalized Jiminy Cricket. So in celebration of this highly anticipated game and this even more highly anticipated Keanu, I want to ask my panel, what is your favorite Keanu Reeves role and why? Kyle, let's start with you.
Well, there's obviously a lot to choose from because he is one of the great national treasures of our lifetime and indeed every lifetime. I think my first favorite was Ted from Bill and Ted, but I'm going to go with Jack Traven from Speed, which is one of the best action movies of the 90s. And he just at that point, he was still kind of considered maybe not a joke, but he was not overly thought of as a good actor. And he really just owns that role as the cop on a bus. And he's just a cool dude. And I wish he was in the sequel, which is of course Speed 2 Cruise Control, but he had better things going on at that point. But I'm a big fan of Speed. I think that's one of the best and kind of under appreciated these days.
Speed, to put it bluntly, whips ass. That movie is so good, just from top to bottom. What a dynamite cast, and also, a real travesty that he didn't come back for the sequel. Couldn't even do mocap.
And just an amazing chemistry with Sandy B. And truly they should have been in more movies together.
Look. Speed walked so the lake house could run. That is just a cinema fact. And speaking of the lake house, that's another reunion of theirs and another role of Keanu played. But tell me, Preeti, what would your favorite Keanu role be?
It's so hard. I think when I was a teenager, I was super maudlin, and so my own Private Idaho comes to mind immediately. It's just handsome sad boys, being philosophical. I loved it. But now I think Always Be My Maybe, his bit part in Always Be My Maybe was the highlight of my year last year. It's so good and just spawned so much fun, internet fun stuff. How could you not choose this moment?
Yeah, and that one was really special because no one had the surprise really ruined for them. It just happened when people watched the movie and everyone's like, wait, Keanu's in this? What the? And his presence just makes a movie that much better. He just brightens up the screen. But Dorian, what's your pick?
So I feel like I'm about to be real basic. It has to be for me. It's going to be John Wick. Like I know like a lot of people are like, all right, but for me, yeah, it's got to be John Wick. I think because I was introduced to him for his later movies, and then started to go back to his older catalog as I started to like get into film more. But like for me, like I always see him first as John Wick, and then Keanu, and then my boy. I think The Matrix is my second favorite role of his, but for sure John Wick. I can watch those. I can watch that whole franchise like back to back to back on repeat for the end of time and not have any issue.
Look, there is nothing to be ashamed about with loving John Wick. That franchise rules. It is central to the Keanu we find ourselves in right now. And yeah, I rewatched them recently, and they're just fantastic films. I can't wait to see more. I think for my pick though, I'd probably have to go back a little bit further because it's another movie I rewatched earlier this year, and that is Point Break, where he plays Johnny Utah, the detective who infiltrates a gang of surf and bank robbers. It's basically like, what if extreme sports met a bank robbery? And the movie is phenomenal, but specifically Keanu Reeves is at the peak of his kind of just like handsome airhead genius in that film. And if you haven't seen it, highly recommend it. It is just a joy each and every time. Let's see in the chat. We have Meyer Herskovitz saying John Wick 3. We have Ryan Meyer saying John Wick Chapter 1. And we have Star Pilot 6 saying Johnny Mnemonic. So that's a deep cut right there. Also a perfect way to intro yourself into the world of cyberpunk with another William Gibson story that he started in Johnny Mnemonic. So there's a nice little connection there. But let's move away from Keanu Reeves and move towards another handsome man with a wonderful head of hair, specifically Oscar Isaac, who is joining the Metal Gear Solid movie. Grab your cardboard boxes, pop the top, and fill them with popcorn because the Metal Gear Solid movie took a major step closer to being that much more than just a lolly lulelo conspiracy theory. On Friday, news broke that Oscar Isaac will play Solid Snake in the long-awaited feature film adaptation of Hideo Kojima's delightfully convoluted stealth action video game series. Now, this movie's been in development for almost as long as a Metal Gear Solid cutscene takes to watch, and it has Kong Skull Island director Jordan Vogt Roberts attached to helm the project. Now, this marks a major step forward for the film based on the long-running franchise because, it was the biggest question mark in there. Who are you going to get to play this character? And I like to think that, Snake is a canonically thick character. There was that shit post that was going around a couple years ago, or is Colonel, I keep trying to sneak around, but I'm dummy thick, and the clap from my ass cheeks keeps alerting the guards. And I think the casting directors were like, who can we get that satisfies our sickness for thickness? There's only one choice. It's Oscar Isaac. So what do you think about Oscar Isaac's casting in this role? And should he also play his clone brother Liquid Snake by just wearing a blonde wig? Kyle, let's start with you.
Well, to answer your last question first, I definitely think he should play his own twin brother by wearing a blonde wig. I think that is something we all need to see in the world today. I think it's really great that this finally happened, because it seems like he had been petitioning for this role for a really long time and been saying like how much he was excited for the Metal Gear Solid movie, and like he's just been like a stand for this project for such a long time. So it makes perfect sense. And the fact that he is like steering hard into franchise filmmaking these days, obviously in Star Wars, but in Dune as well, where he's rocking the best beard of all time. So I think that, give him more big franchises led by an actor of his quality, I think is a great move. Also, he's in one of my favorite movies of the last like 20 years, which is the Coen brothers Inside Llewyn Davis, and he's so good in that. And so I want every good thing for him from now until the end of time.
Yeah, my only complaint about the Metal Gear franchise is I don't remember any part where Snake busts out the acoustic guitar and serenades us with a song about Shadow Moses or whatever nonsense happens in those games.
Yeah.
Now, for those who don't know, the games are famously convoluted, just with double crossings and clones and just the kind of plots that make you just scratch your head, turn it all the way around like you're in The Exorcist and just keep wondering what the hell just happened. But how do you think they can capture the unique weirdness of Metal Gear Solid in a feature film while still making it palatable for mass audiences? You don't just want to make it a generic Tom Clancy spy thriller. So how do you think they can strike that balance tonally? Preeti, let's start with you on this one.
When we started, I was like, I don't know that much about Metal Gear, but I think when you are adapting it, first off, a musical number, obviously, like give him the acoustic guitar, figure out a way to make it happen. I do think they'll have to significantly simplify would be my guess, but still bring in like those fun Easter eggs from the games. And I feel like it's gonna be hard to mess up when you have someone like Oscar Isaac at the front, right? Like he's such a joy to watch, and even though I don't know anything about these games, like I 100% am gonna go see this movie because like I enjoy watching Oscar Isaac do things on screen.
Yeah, and I think that is also a great point, is just like you need someone who has that eminent watchability and like magnetism to draw you in, because for as big of a property that Metal Gear Solid is, it doesn't necessarily have the same fan base that something like an Assassin's Creed had. Now, obviously, I hope with every fiber of my being this is better than Assassin's Creed, which was legally a movie. But
did they make an Assassin's Creed movie? I don't remember.
They must not have. I can't seem to
No.
remember it. I must have scrubbed that from my personal animus. But I do think that it is a unique challenge anytime you make a video game movie. But I'm curious, Dorian, I want your take on this. Do you think a game like Metal Gear Solid, which is often criticized as being too many cutscenes and feels like a movie, do you think this is the movie that could maybe finally break the video game movie curse?
I mean, I'm hoping so. Like like Preeta, I'm not too familiar, like too heavy into the Metal Gear Solid like world. But as soon as they said like Oscar Isaac was being cast, I was like, all right, let me see what this is about. And I also know Jordan has been a big, like he's been pushing this for a while and he's been passionate about this. So if you're combining those two, like if you got my boy Isaac, like he's confident enough to sign up for the role, then he obviously sees something in the script. He sees something in like he sees something there. So I trust his judgment and I trust Jordan's passion. So you put those two together, like you got me. Like it kind of makes me want to actually go back and dive deep into the games and start to like get a history for them, so I know what I'm looking forward to when I'm jumping into the movie.
I will say they are super fun, and if you take a peek at the wiki for any of these games, you are going to audibly ask what the entire frack just happened, because it is baffling. It makes more sense contextually, but when you're just reading about it from the like 10,000 foot view, it's very confusing. But I do think that you raise a good point there with Jordan Vogt Roberts involved. He did an interview back when Kong Skull Island came out with a friend of the show, Cal Anonymous, and he really spoke to wanting to preserve that tone of Hideo Kojima and that singular weirdness of these games and make sure that comes through. So I'm very excited, and fingers crossed it'll be everything that we're hoping for and more.
I do gotta say that I'm embarrassed that I did recognize that you were talking about Metal Gear Solid when you mentioned that the dummy thick meme. Like I immediately was like, oh, he's talking about that. Like, all right.
Look, whoever first wrote that, I forget the name of the intrepid Twitter user that did that. They did a great service for this franchise by putting it back into the zeitgeist with that indelible imagery. And if you can find it out there, I believe the actual voice actor for Solid Snake in the video games, David Hayter, went back and recorded a voiceover version of that for his nephew, who's also making TikToks or something. It's a weird web of internet nonsense, but highly recommend checking it out because it's great hearing it from Snake's mouth to your ears. Anyway, let's leave that behind and move on to another musically inclined superstar. That's right, folks. I'm talking about Jeremy Renner. The Marvel Cinematic Universe may be largely hibernating this year, but filming is already underway for the highly anticipated Hawkeye Disney Plus series in New York, which appears to be adapting Matt Fraction and David Aja's critically acclaimed comics run that began with 2016's My Life as a Weapon. Although it has not been officially announced, multiple outlets learned through set photos that Haley Steinfeld will be playing Kate Bishop, who takes on the mantle of Hawkeye herself, becomes a member of the Young Avengers, and Clint Barton's partner to boot. Now, in addition to teasing Jeremy Renner's Clint Barton wearing a hearing aid and other fan favorite characters like Lucky the Pizza Dog, Variety also announced that Black Widow star Florence Pugh will appear in the show as Yelena Belova, and also we're going to have Vera Farmiga as Kate's mom Eleanor Bishop, Frafri as Kazi, who's likely the villain clown that renders Clint Barton deaf in the comics, Tony Dalton as Jack Duquesne, aka Hawkeye's mentor turned villain swordsman, Alakwa Cox as Echo, a deaf Native American heroine that can perfectly copy another person's movements, and Zahn McClarnon as Echo's father. So my questions to the panel are, what do you want to see from this Hawkeye series? Because much like Black Widow to a certain extent, or even the Hulk, like the Hawkeye was kind of a character that was always kind of off to the side. They didn't really put him in the limelight as much as his fellow Avengers. So what do you hope to see from him in this Disney Plus series? Preeti, let's start with you.
I really hope that they can bring the level of personality and character that Matt Fraction and David Aja brought to the comics, because I think that's really when Hawkeye went from being like a really like a fun character, like a great character. Like what they do in those comics is it's incredible. Some of the best comic writing I feel like of the last decade is in that series, and so part of what the Marvel Cinematic Universe missed out on was like just kind of introducing Hawkeye almost like too soon, because this is such a great characterization and they missed the opportunity to have that characterization like in the movies. And so getting to see that on screen and then add that to Kate Bishop, who is such a great character now, I think it's going to be like just they're going to hit it out of the ballpark. Like I'm super psyched to see what they do with it, because they're clearly looking at the influences they should be looking at.
Yeah, and like it's truly you'd be hard pressed to name a better Hawkeye comics run than what Fraction and Aja did, because it just, I think it did, like you were saying, for a lot of people, redefined what we expect from this character that was kind of just always like, it's, they even joke about it in the movies. It's like, what are you gonna do with a bow and arrow compared to a literal god of thunder? But it makes him, it shows him like just kind of on his own as this street level hero in certain cases, and presents him with unique challenges, like when he has to contend with losing his hearing. And we're getting some really interesting casting here. So I want to hear, Kyle, what do you think about this new casting and what do you hope that it brings to the series?
What I think is really awesome is that they, Disney and Marvel are very secretive all the time, but as soon as there was like the set photos, which obviously they can't comment on because it's not official yet, but like Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop, it's like, oh yeah, that's such a good casting, and like it just completely works. And I'm really hoping that this show and all these characters and stuff like that, because WandaVision it looks like it's going to be real weird, and I think that's perfect for those characters. But like I think Clint needs just a straight down the line kind of like action drama, because he's been so kind of short shrifted in the movies for such a long time, but he had that great emotional arc in Endgame. I think people want to see more of that, because that's what you want from a Clint Barton is kind of like, he is just a guy who has all, who is really well trained and getting her to come up as the young Avenger too, I think will be really great. So I'm really stoked. I like the fact that they're treating these shows like parts of the MCU in a way that I maybe didn't think that they were going to, by putting all these other characters from other movies and stuff together. So I think all around this is going to be such a cool idea. I'm more stoked for that show than I was like last week.
Yeah, I mean, especially as we see some of the parts come into place, because when you first, like, if you're just coming out of the MCU and you just hear Hawkeye Disney Plus series, you're kind of raising an eyebrow like, what? Okay, sure. But knowing what they're basing it on and everything that we've seen so far and reading about this casting has me more and more excited for it. And you also touched on something else that I'm excited for, because while it does seem like this show is going to be a bit more self-contained as compared to something like a WandaVision, for example, it does feel like they're building towards a larger Young Avengers team, of which Kate Bishop could be a seminal part. So Dorian, I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you think that is where they're heading? And is that something you would actually like to see come to fruition in the MCU?
Oh, hell yeah. One of my biggest, not complaints, it's just something that I've been acknowledging, is like either all the heroes are in their mid 30s or they're in high school. There's never been like a hero like 20 in their mid 20s, like they're just in college or anything. Like we haven't really seen that. So I would love for them to finally like really explore that, especially on Disney Plus. And I want to echo something that Kyle said, like had not no interest, but like now that Haley Steinfeld has been like confirmed as casting, especially with you're having Florence Pugh, really like Kevin Feige said something saying like their focus really is all going to be on the TV side of things versus the movie side, and this really like echoes that. Like I was completely for when they said that Florence was joining the cast, and I feel like I saw that there were talks that she might pop up in the Falcon and Winter Soldier cast too. So it seems like they're just like really trying to build her up her character, make her the next Black Widow. So I'm definitely excited to see what they do next, and really want that Young Avengers series. Like give me a Young Avengers Disney Plus series ASAP. They're setting it up. We're getting speed. Hopefully we get Speed and Wiccan from the WandaVision series, and then you get Ant-Man. We get Ant-Man 3 setting up little Cassie, and then we're all good. Come on now.
Don't forget a Hulkling. We got to get a Hulkling in there. That's my one request. But yeah, I think you raise a great point there, in that we definitely are missing a kind of an age group that is massive fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's why Tom Holland was such a breath of fresh air when he first appeared in Civil War, because you're like, oh, how would an actual child react to all of this nonsense happening around him? And it's really cool to filter stuff through that perspective. And now we've been through a couple different stories with Peter Parker, but it's going to be nice to get even more sort of youthful energy injected into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let's see, Enda McNabola in the chat says, this may be the first year without an MCU movie, the end of a streak, but I choose to see it as the beginning of a new, fresh start. And I really like that sentiment, because this does kind of feel like a new start for the MCU following Endgame. Like, that was a definitive exclamation point at the end of a 10-year-long sentence. And, you know, that's a lot of pressure to immediately follow up. But clearly Marvel has their next 5 to 10 years, who knows, maybe even longer, planned out for movies. So I'm excited to see where this fresh start takes us. And speaking of fresh starts, let's leave the Marvel Cinematic Universe behind and talk about a fresh start that maybe we could find for ourselves. Let me ask you something, folks. Are you tired of living on this planet? Do you think that Mars doesn't just need moms, but a long-term colony as well? Do you have billions of dollars and way too much time to tweet? Well, if so, you might be Elon Musk talking about your dreams of colonizing the red planet. So in September, during a virtual Humans to Mars summit, Musk said, getting to Mars, I think, is not the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is building a base, building a city on Mars that is self-sustaining. Now, Musk was realistic about the challenges, noting how hard it would be and the likelihood of death, because after all, that's how you get ghosts of Mars, especially for those early colonists. And on Twitter, he wrote that early life on Mars would be, quote, life in glass domes at first, eventually terraformed to support life like Earth. And while terraforming will be too slow to be relevant in our lifetime, we can establish a human base there in our lifetime. So my question to the panel is, what are your thoughts on Musk's plan about life under a glass dome, and would you volunteer to be part of a Mars colony? Preeti, let's start with you on this one.
Well, I would not volunteer to be part of a Mars colony right now at this moment in time. I think that it's funny. I'm reading Octavia Butler right now, Lilith's Brood, the trilogy, in which they create a colony on Mars for humans who don't want to be a part of this alien experiment, basically. And so this is very apt for the conversation. And it just sounds awful. Like, everything about it just sounds like I don't want to be a part of that at all. They're like, all of his quotes, it'd be really hard. People are going to die. But, you know, someday.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like a very risky proposition right now, but all of the potatoes you can eat, I don't know about you folks, but that
all
sounds...
the potatoes?
Wow.
Well, that's a different,
good.
that's a different, okay, well, maybe then yes.
Yes.
But only for the potatoes.
People always forget all the potatoes you can eat await you on the barren red hellscape of Mars. Dorian, what about you? Do you think that something like this could happen within our lifetime?
I mean, bro, I just recently just started watching The Expanse, so I'm not ruling anything out. And just because of that, my answer will also be what Preeta says. I will not move to Mars, not touching anything. Like, I've been binge watching that show the past week and a half, and it is so timely, especially now, like everything going on. It's just like, no, like Mars is a no-go for me, bro. I do admire Elon Musk's like his perseverance, his tenacity, but I'm not going to give him any praise. Not gonna let him get any of it. He's crazy enough to actually go through with this. So no, I'm not. I don't want this to happen. Don't put it in the universe, sir.
I feel like the only reason I'd want to be part of that initial wave is to help canonize certain space slang terms, like The Expanse. You know, the Belters, they have all their own unique terminology. I'd want to be part of that just so I could come up with truly dumbass lingo that will then have to be repeated throughout history, and just see if I can get stupid things to catch on.
Listen, if I can like sign up,
you did it.
Like if I sign up, like by the time, like if you like have a list, sign up RSVP and it'll be ready in like 70 years. If I'm old as hell and I don't have anything to lose, yeah, I'll go. Like get up there, but not right now. Like,
yeah,
down the line maybe.
If Elon needs me on his mission to see how fast it takes a grandpa to die in space, sign me up. But Kyle, what about you? What are your thoughts on this Mars mission? And would you rather opt for a moon base instead? Because that is also on the table.
Well, moon base, you can at least see home. You know what I mean? Like you can go, it's right there. An interesting, I mean, like like he said, getting to Mars is not that hard. But it's literally, there's no way back. So whoever goes the first time, you basically, that's your life now. No matter how, even if it's like a week or a nominal amount of time, you are not going back to Earth. So there's that thing to remember. But then there's also just kind of, if he's not going to go, then why would I want to go? You know what I mean? Like, he's just going to set it up and be like, everyone else have fun and die up there. I'm going to be rich and crazy and tweet a lot. Like, no, I'm good there. I don't really need that.
Well, when he's talking about terraforming as well, I believe that Futurism did they did the math on this, and in order to properly terraform Mars, it would require multiple nuclear explosions. How many, you ask? Dropping and detonating 3,500 nuclear warheads every day for 7 weeks. And that would unfortunately also have the side effect of probably killing all colonists, or making it, like, irradiating the planet so much that it would no longer support human life, but it would theoretically terraform the planet into something maybe a bit more Earth-like. So
What?
Look,
look.
Like, it's so no.
How are you going to get all those warheads up there? Like, it's just like such a silly idea. Like, fine, if you can get a dome,
really big ship. Just
you're right.
With
Really
big
big
ships.
ship.
An astronaut with large
giant
hands.
ship.
Yeah. Okay. If we can build a giant ship, why don't we just live on that ship?
Because that's how you
ridiculous.
wind up with so many sci-fi stories.
Yeah, it's true.
An
You get a
arc ship
Battlestar
always goes
Galactica,
poorly.
you get Lost in Space,
Yeah. You're just going to wind up with just like a bunch of aliens bursting out of people's chests and crashing into another planet, where then family has to rebuild society with 0 nukes. Is that the world you want to live in, Kyle? I don't think so.
I mean, I think my number one concern would be running out of aqua. That's expanse stuff.
There we go. That is an expansive repertoire of references you just displayed.
Yeah.
But let's leave our Milky Way galaxy behind, folks, and head off to the galaxy far, far away. The latest episode of The Mandalorian did not pump the brakes at all. Instead, it put the pedal to the Beskar metal with a Robert Rodriguez directed shootout aptly titled Chapter 14, The Tragedy. Now, if you haven't seen this week's episode yet, this is your spoiler warning. We'll give you time to mute in 3, 2, 1. Okay, anything beyond this point is your fault. You know what you did. It was in the description. Like, come on, you did this to yourself. You have plenty of time. Cancel your plans. Anyway, at long last, after 40 years of empty promises, Boba Fett finally kicked exactly as much ass as we hoped he would, both in and out of his armor. And we got confirmation about a long-time question about Boba and his dad Jango, as well as more clues to Moff Gideon's master plan. It was a shorter episode overall, but one that wasted no time in giving us thrilling fight scenes, exploding spaceships, and some serious mortal peril for the wee baby Grogu. So my question to the panel is, what were your reactions to this episode and your thoughts on Robert Rodriguez's directing style? And Dorian, let's start with you on this one.
So like me coming into this personally, I wasn't not the biggest Star Wars fan, like in general. And I feel like after watching this episode, I feel like I had that aha, like I finally, like, I understand like everything in the Star Wars, I understand why like there's diehard fans about it. Like I had that little click inside me. I was like, am I a Star Wars fan, like diehard now? Like Robert Rodriguez did something to me, man. I don't understand. Like that episode was so good. But I didn't realize that I just clicked play. I didn't realize the time. I didn't realize it was a shorter episode. So here we are, baby Grogu, baby Grogu gets kidnapped. I'm like, all right, Mando Boba Fett about to go get him. Let's go. I'm at the edge of my seat, and then the credits come. When I tell you I was about to run up to Disney Plus's office, I was so mad. I've never been that mad about a credit ending that quick, bro. I was like, no, how you gonna take Baby Yoda away from me like that? Oh man, I mean Baby Grogu. I don't want to. That's his name. I got to be respectful to his name, Baby Grogu. But
look,
man, that was such
Baby
a good
Yoda
episode.
will always be an acceptable term for him. But Grogu, we'll try to remember his name. They just dropped it on us. He's Grogu now. Everyone, say hello to Grogu. But you know that someone at Disney Plus is feverishly speculating and trying to engineer a scenario where Baby Groot and Baby Grogu can just hang out and pal around. Maybe we'll do like a what if scenario where like Groot is a force tree from wherever Poe Dameron was from. But I'm curious. I think the big reveal in this episode, not just the return of the amazing Ming-Na Wen as Fennec Shand, the Imperial sharpshooter that we saw Left 4 Dead in season 1, but also getting full confirmation that it is in fact Tamira Morrison as Boba Fett, and just finally getting to see them deliver on that promise. So what did you think about Boba Fett's appearance and the revelation that they are in fact true Mandalorians? Preeti, let's start with you on this one.
Oh, I loved it. I was, Boba Fett's never been my favorite character. I feel like he's a lot of hype and not a lot of follow through, but all of the follow through in this episode, every fight scene, every moment, I thought was just it's more interesting than the character has been in decades. And so it brought, I obviously, like, when you watch the Clone Wars and all of that, you have this like long history of Boba Fett, and you see like him and as his like child bounty hunter years and going forward. And this seems like such a wonderful way to bring him into the fold as a character that we're going to root for, like not as someone who's hunting Han Solo, not as someone who's like angry at Mace Windu, like not as this like frustrating like filler episode of the Clone Wars. So it's really fun to see now that he's going to be helping us. Oh, get the poor baby back. I'm so upset about it. This is like the most tense episode I think we've had of The Mandalorian, where it was just like the minute Robert Rodriguez's name came up, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Well, like, yeah, okay, sure. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of him and Fennec together, and yeah, the Mandalore stuff, which is I think one of the most interesting pieces, obviously, of a show called The Mandalorian. But Mandalore is another thing. Like, I saw this thing that was like, The Mandalorian is a show about a side character, but that's what we've been getting from Mandalore for over the course of all of the like new canon for Star Wars, is just bits and pieces of lore that we have to assemble and build together. And so this is just another piece of the puzzle of the Mandalore history that I'm super excited to learn more about.
Yes, it's nice to see them give us actual Mando lore for a change, because it, like you said, we've known just bits and pieces about this overarching story that feels so intertwined in the grander Skywalker saga of it all. And I do love that. I've heard people compare it to like almost like an open world RPG where like he's this character who's basically on a series of side quests that's incidental to the main story, and they're just like, but there's they're trying to clone this dead emperor over there. Don't you want to know more about that? He's like, no,
like,
I'm
nope.
trying to find my son a private tutor. Please leave me alone. So
Mando's Honda Civic got blown up. I'm so upset.
The Lego group is sweating right now. They like you don't need to spend like $600 on a replica of the Razor Crest. You can just like pour out a bunch of Lego bricks onto a pile and light them on fire, and guess what? You have a screen accurate representation of the Razor Crest. I was genuinely shocked when that happened. Mando cannot catch a break, but it was also the rule of threes when he blew up the other two ships, so a third one had to explode, I guess. But yeah, I was kind of surprised because that ship kind of felt like it was on its way to like Millennium Falcon icon status. So it gave me respect, a newfound respect for Star Wars and Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and what they're willing to do with these characters. It makes it feel like nothing is kind of sacred. There's no real plot armor there, even though it was just a ship. But Kyle, I want to get your take on this. What did you think about Boba Fett's appearance and this episode's implications as we move forward?
So one of the things that I've always loved about this show is that and actually the Clone Wars and Rebels also, but is they've taken things that are no longer canon in the EU, the legends, and made them recanalize them, like Thrawn and other characters like that. And one of the things that was from way back, one of the first Star Wars books I ever read was Tales of the Bounty Hunters, and it was just little like short stories about all the bounty hunters. And you got so much about what Boba Fett was. He was a very noble character, and hated the spice trade, thought it was drug dealing and stuff like that, and was like very. I think there's a scene where like he's with Leia, and when she's like a slave of Jabba the Hutt, and he's just like, he's like, don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about improper things from me, kind of thing. And it was just like, oh, so this is the character that he is, or whatever. And so what I think is really great about this is that he goes out as such a joke in Return of the Jedi, and it's become a joke for such a long time. This show and Clone Wars have spent such a long time building up the armor, basically making the armor a story. And Boba Fett just being the character who started that, and then they finally in this episode brought it back around. So it's like, no, he is a great character, and he just never got the the focus in the movies or anything else. And so, like, Tamir Morrison's fantastic, and I love the fact that it's like an honor bound thing. He's like, I made a promise to you to get this the child safe, and we're gonna live up to that. And just the idea of Din Djarin and Boba Fett teaming up is just like, this is exactly what you wanted. The second you saw Din Djarin, the first Mandalorian trailer, you go, this is what a Boba Fett show should have been like. And now we get to see what Boba Fett himself is actually like on the show. And I think that's super great.
Yeah, the fact that we also got to see just him kicking ass with a gothy stick, as well as showing off everything his armor's capable of. I see Bruce Paulson in the chat saying knee rockets for the win, which is awesome. Like, it's one of those things you forget about unless you're just like remembering old EU books and action figures. His knee pad has a rocket launcher in it. And at one point, the EU had poison darts with neurotoxin on them, but I think that would have been needlessly cruel for the scenario there. So I'm glad they just stuck with rockets. Sometimes you got to blow stuff up. It's nice to see it recasts him as this sort of relentless survivor who is doing what it takes to eke out an existence in a hostile galaxy that has scattered his people to the winds, has taken his father's life, and he is just trying to, like, he even echoes his father Django, a line from the original. I'm blanking on the exact phrase at the moment. He's like, I'm just a simple man making my way through the galaxy. But I was just like, wow, I owe Boba Fett an apology. I've just been clowning on this dork for getting dunked on by a temporarily blind Han Solo and knocked into an eldritch monster for years. But here he is living up to his promise.
Well, and to prove that the promise was there, the second, because you see the Slave One before you see Boba Fett in that episode, and I'm sure everybody else did too, but like I was like that's one of the top like 5 ships in all of Star Wars, like in terms of design and just like overall iconicness. And so it was just like, and maybe that's why they blew up the Razor Crest, because it's like, we got the Slave One, you don't really need the Razor Crest anymore.
Yeah, we already have this merch made.
One thing that I think is particularly cruel is that every year Lego does an advent calendar, a Lego Star Wars and a Lego City one. And the day after the episode aired, the Lego Star Wars advent calendar was a little Razor Crest. And I just thought that they didn't plan that out, or they did and they're just a-holes. Either way, it was like, what a brutal way to have that be there that weekend.
They're like, we should have made this the first one. What were we thinking?
What were we thinking? Now it's like a shrine you can make.
Yeah. Well, next week is going to be a pair of little Lego baby handcuffs like they put on Grogu at the end of the episode, which I will say, like, it was like both hilarious and horrifying, but just hilarious the fact that they just happen to have that on hand.
Yeah.
But also horrifying because like it speaks to their, like, the Empire was actively hunting down Force sensitive children so they can do whatever sick Sith science, say that 5 times fast, that Moff Gideon is trying to execute so it can fulfill Palpatine's The Prestige scenario over on Exegol. It's just, it was a very bleak ending, and one that I appreciated because I love, that's one of the best parts of Star Wars is like, it's that always darkest before the dawn moment, to borrow parlance from another movie. But I'm very excited to see where it goes from here, because I love anything that involves putting together a squad. That is exactly what the Mando is going to do. So my final question before we move on is, who else do you think is going to join the Mando, Fennec Shand and Boba Fett on their quest to spring Grogu and Migs Mayfield, as played by noted space Bostonian Bill Burr? So Preeti, I want to hear from you. Who do you think we're also going to see join this squad?
I really want Amy Sedaris back. I feel like Amy Sedaris is a mechanic showing up like Mando needs a new ship. Like, she's gonna be super mad about the baby. Like, I feel like I want Amy Sedaris there with like her like vengeance eyes on, like furious that someone would dare to hurt little baby Grogu. That'd be really fun.
I love Amy Sedaris' character in that, and it just makes me like it makes me wish they had kept making the Star Wars 1313 video game, like that was gonna be like the bounty hunting video game, because she would 100% be the character you go to upgrade your ship. Like, oh, hey there, Mando, found a nice thruster for you. Like that'll be 100 credits. Like that's all I want. I just want more of Amy Sedaris on that show, with her like weird Ripley vibe. But Kyle, what do you think?
I mean, I think I would love to see Katie Sackhoff's Bo-Katan come back, which I think you posited in a recent Nerdist News episode, Dan. But I mean, I would really love it if Timothy Olyphant's Cobb Vanth came back and was just like, like I owe you one kind of thing, because I love that this whole season has basically been like, here are other cool characters in the galaxy, and what if they like all teamed up? I don't think Ahsoka's going to show up again, but anybody else could show up from this whole season, and I would be like, what if like the two X-Wing pilots, Dave Filoni and I forget the other guy's name, but that would be great if they were just like, all right, we'll help too, and it's just like, I would be down for any of that.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing is like they introduce so many memorable characters on this show that I'd be happy with almost any of them. Maybe one of those fisherman sweater wearing, Mon Calamari from the Waterworld they went to. Not that mechanic though; he was a different species and also a traitor who betrayed Baby Grogu.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not the traitor.
He is not invited. He is not invited. But Dorian, who do you hope to see on this eventual Mando Prison Break squad?
I'd love to see Ahsoka return. It might probably be unlikely to happen, but I feel like Rosaria Dawson wouldn't agree to sign up to get that much aesthetic put on her face and have to go through all of that just to show up for one episode. So hopefully she returns again just for a little bit, because like I don't know, like you don't get her and you don't bring Ahsoka to life to not like utilize her again. Hopefully get a spinoff or something. But yeah, I would love for her to come back, like get her versus Darth, get the Darksaber versus her. I would love for something like that. I don't know, man, but yeah, bring Ahsoka back.
Look, we all know Dave Filoni famously satisfied with seeing Ahsoka Tano once in canon and then never again. So who's to say what can happen? I'm very curious as to what's going to happen in the weeks ahead, and we'll have a breakdown for you right here on Nerdist this coming Friday, so make sure you stay tuned. And if you're not caught up, we have a breakdown of the previous episode you can watch right now. But with that said, let's move on to our biggest story of the day. Folks, it started with Universal releasing Trolls World Tour on VOD the same day it hit theaters. Then Disney said, give us $30 to stream Mulan in addition to your subscription fee. Then WB said, we're putting Wonder Woman 1984 on HBO Max the same day it hits theaters for free. And now the news that has rocked the entertainment world, Warner Media revealed their entire 2021 slate, 17 films, including Dune, Godzilla vs. Kong, The Suicide Squad, The Matrix 4, and so many more, will all simultaneously release on HBO Max the same day and date they hit theaters. This is unprecedented, to put it lightly. Now, not everyone was stoked about this news. In a statement to The Hollywood Reporter, Adam Aron, the CEO of the world's largest theater chain, AMC, had this to say: clearly, Warner Media intends to sacrifice a considerable portion of the profitability of its movie studio division and that of its production partners and filmmakers to subsidize its HBO Max startup. As for AMC, we will do all in our power to ensure that Warner does not do so at our expense. We will aggressively pursue economic terms that preserve our business. It is a fraught situation any way you slice it. There are positives and negatives to this news, but I want to ask the panel, what were your reactions when this news broke? Do you think that theaters are doomed, as some people are saying? So Kyle, let's start with you on this one.
So I think this seems like a really knee-jerk thing to do. I think Warner Brothers probably got some decent buzz about HBO Max once they said that Wonder Woman 84 was going to be on there. I think pre-committing to all 17 films next year is not a great look, especially considering it's very likely that by the end of the year, which a lot of these movies are slated for the fall into the winter of next year, there will be a much greater chance for people to go to the movies and have it be safe and everything like that. It's, January through kind of maybe May, I can understand you doing that, but just like pre-committing to all of that stuff, I think is a bit premature. And it also seems like they didn't talk to anybody else, where like Disney owns Mulan outright. It can do whatever it wants with that. Warner Brothers does not own outright all of these movies, and to not have things in place with some of these production companies and distributors just seems really short-sighted, and it seems like it's really going to blow up in their face, if you're asking me.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a bit of a minefield, I think, in the weeks and months ahead. From my vantage point, it feels like kind of just a short-term solution to boost HBO Max subscriptions because that streaming service is not doing nearly as well as a Netflix or a Disney Plus or Hulu. So, I thought it was a very smart move to do this with Wonder Woman 1984 to kind of dominate that Christmas conversation, that holiday break. But this is, I mean, shocking to say the least. It seems like they're trying to take a short-term loss at the box office for a long-term gain in streaming revenue, but I don't know how viable that's going to be in the long run. So I'm curious, Dorian, what are your thoughts on this news? And do you think that this is just designed to drive more people to HBO Max?
So interestingly enough, like my first reaction was excited, like I'm dope, hell yeah, because I live in California, LA area, so theaters are closed, so I haven't been able to see some of the movies that have been opening up. But interestingly enough, I had the opportunity to see Wonder Woman from the TV, like I got to see it on my TV, and I was sitting there, like I was enjoying it, like I can say I enjoyed it or whatever. But there were so many moments where I was just sitting there, I was like, yeah, I understand why Patty was fighting so hard to make this in the theater because there were so many moments like jetpack moment, like when you see the I don't know without spoiling, like when you just see some of these moments, you're just like, damn it, man, I wish I could have experienced this for the first time in the theater. Like, I get it, Patty. I get why you were fighting so hard. Like I would have delayed that whole year just because some of those scenes were so like, man. But I don't know. I think it's a tough situation. Like we're in a pandemic, so I understand they have to do what fits best for certain areas. Like for people that don't have access to a theater, but it does hurt the smaller theaters. I think it does hurt. It will hurt a lot of people in the long run. But at the same time, like I don't know, it's so weird. Like it because it does benefit people like me, like people that don't have access to a theater and he can't actually just
Mhm.
use HBO Max. But yeah, it's a tough situation all around.
Well, I think that's a great point. And something that Amanda Nelson in the chat also echoes, small town theaters are already shutting down. The nearest one to me is 70 miles now. And accessibility, whether that's geographic or if you have a disability or you're an at-risk person that can't go out to a theater, even if you have a safe theater to go to, yes, I understand we're still in a pandemic. But from an accessibility standpoint, I do think that this is a really impressive decision because it makes these films available to so many more people. Like a friend of mine as well is a parent with a small child, and like their date night would usually be going to the movies, but they can only do that once every couple of months because it's such an expensive endeavor. You have to hire a sitter, there's all these steps you have to go through. So from that perspective, I'm glad that more people will be able to experience the joy that these cinematic spectacles bring to us because that's one of the things I love about the movies. This you just get to lose yourself in this faraway world, this piece of art for 2 hours, hopefully not more than 2 hours. If your movie is longer than 2 hours, please rethink what you're doing. But I think that there's a lot to say for this decision. I'm just curious, do you think we're going to see this be a trend in the long term, or are we going to see something like shortened theatrical windows? Like Universal struck a deal with Cinemark and AMC to guarantee movies in theaters for 17 days before they can go to VOD, and they will extend that to 31 days if it opens to $50 million or more. Now, that to me seems like an interesting compromise that would still make it accessible to more people while still giving exhibitors and theater owners the kind of exclusivity window they want. But I'm curious, Preeti, what do you think about this? Is this going to be something we see in the long term? Is this just changing the game forever?
No, I don't think this is changing the game forever. I think this is very much like I agree it's reactionary, but I think it's reactionary to this year. Like, but Tenet was Warner Brothers, wasn't it?
Yes.
Mm.
That was a disaster. And
Yeah, that's
so
that's what prompted the exodus of all these other films from the theater.
exactly. And so I think Warner Brothers is looking at the losses they had this year and probably just being like, how can we make this up? Like, what can we do? We're not going to be able to rely on people going to the theater because even yes, we're going to be in a different world a year from now, but the psychological ramifications of what we're going through are going to be much longer. I know a lot of people are like, I'm not going to feel safe going into crowds for like I don't even know how long. Like I don't know when I'm going to be ready to walk into a room. Think about watching TV now when you see people in a crowd, you're like,
Mm.
oh, no thanks. And so like this does feel like very short term to me in terms of that. Like it just feels like, well, we're going to do what we need to do to just to continue on for as long as we can. I do think though it's gonna unfortunately have an impact on viewer habits, and so people are going to have expectations for when they get to see their movies and how they get to see their movies. And so I like the idea of this compromise, actually. Like, I don't, it's like Dorian said, it's a tough spot to be in. Like, already we're in the position of these smaller theaters closing, which that's a whole other conversation about who has the rights to distribute films and who owns film catalogs and what they agree to and all of those things and what theaters can afford to show. So it's a much bigger conversation, I think, than just when are movies coming out and where are they coming out. Um, but at least like being like, we're gonna tie it to a money amount. We're gonna tie it to like success, so that at least there's some kind of like, even if it's amorphous guarantee or whatever it is. It's just, I feel like everything's hard and everyone's scrambling.
And I do agree with your. Oh, sorry, Dan. I didn't want to cut
No,
you
go
off.
ahead.
But
Go ahead.
like, speaking of Tenet, like I actually drove to Vegas to see that, and the only reason I felt safe enough to even do that was because like the whole theater was closed and it was only about 5 or 6 people, so I had enough space for it. But I couldn't even, like, me being a personal neat freak and all that, just in this current climate we're living in, like I would feel some type of way like having just half the people in there. I don't think I would just even feel comfortable. I'd be like, all right, I have to wear a mask, still have to, like, if I hear one cough, I'm walking out. Like, so yeah, it's just it's a tough situation. But I do like that they are giving you the option of, like, if there's a theater in your area and they're following guidelines, you can go see that movie. So I do like that, rather than like they're just saying like, it's just going to streaming. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I think the big question right now is a company like Disney going to follow suit? Because I would argue that they are the other sort of the major player that people are looking to in terms of these blockbuster level things. Now there's a shareholder meeting, I believe, this coming Thursday that's supposed to be pretty long, and a lot of people are speculating that we're going to get an answer one way or the other as to whether or not we're going to actually see Disney putting a bunch of their movies on Disney Plus the same day and date, or just moving stuff over to Disney Plus entirely. They've already done that with a slew of films, like the Cruella de Vil movie, for example. They're putting Pixar's new film Soul on Disney Plus. So it's interesting what movies they are deeming as like sort of being streaming exclusive versus if they're going to then, or try to do something like charging an additional fee like they did with Mulan so they can cut their losses. But what do you think is going to happen with Disney? Do you think they're going to follow Warner Brothers' footsteps on this, Kyle?
I think it's very possible that they are going to do that. And because they more or less outright own all of their content, they can do it without much worry of kind of pushback. And they, I don't know how I didn't look, but how successful their Mulan one, having it be like you pay an extra fee on top of Disney Plus in order to watch it, and then you wait a few months and it'll just be on Disney Plus anyway. I'm not sure how well that did, but at least it kind of gives, it doesn't sell out the movie, I think, which is, some of the things that I'm seeing about the HBO Warner Brothers thing is like, you're underselling all of these great movies that you've spent time and effort, and all these people have spent time and effort into, if it's just anybody who already has the subscription service can just watch it for 31 days. And so I feel like that's like Disney maybe is in a position to do the same type of thing, but do it a little better and do it a little bit more, doing justice to the films, I think. Because one of the things, the last few years, actually the last like 10 or more years, studios have been steering hard left into giant blockbusters because they make the most money theater wise. And now it's like they're at the point where they're going to have to start switching back to low to mid budget films, because you can much easier recoup your costs if you just send it to streaming or maybe a small theatrical run. And so I think right now they're all just kind of scrambling because it really just kind of puts into perspective how little anyone was prepared for something like the pandemic to happen, because so many industries counted on constant stream of revenue and giant amounts of money at once. And that's just, obviously this year has kind of shot that. So I do understand the kind of like the fear that maybe Warner Brothers has, especially after Tenet. But I think Disney is in the position at this point to kind of right the ship, or their own ship, or kind of like set the example for how it ought to be done, I guess, for the next year or so, at least.
Yeah, I think you make some great points there. And, we'll have more information as to which way the cookie will crumble at the House of Mouse very soon. But as we all know, what happens when you give a mouse a cookie? everything goes to streaming. Anyway, with that said, that is it for today's news. We're going to move on to some good old-fashioned Nerdist News trivia. And we here at the Nerdist News Talks Back Institute for the Trivial Arts like to connect our trivia to the barest of threads. So given the fact that we are 2 days away from the 26th anniversary of Tekken, the fighting game about evil demonic families and security bears, we're going to celebrate with some fighting game trivia. That's right, folks. It makes sense. Don't think about it too hard because then the whole premise falls apart. Like my defense whenever I play Tekken. Anyway, do my contestants have a pen, pencil, or crayon, something to write with?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, question 1. Tekken has some of the weirdest characters in the pantheon of fighting games, but which of these is not actually a Tekken character? A. Roger, a boxing kangaroo. B. Mokujin, a sentient training dummy. C. Ogre, an Aztec god. Or D. Mocap, a man in a motion capture suit. Which of the following is not actually a Tekken character? Is it A. Roger, a boxing kangaroo, B. Mokujin, a sentient training dummy, C. Ogre, an Aztec god, or D. Mocap, a man in a motion capture suit? On the bright side, everyone has at least a 25% chance of getting this correct. All right, do we have our answers? All right, let's see them. Sorry, Dorian, I can't see yours.
My bad. It's a D.
Okay, well, that is a good answer. The answer is D, Mocap.
Let's go.
So Mocap is actually a canonical character in the Mortal Kombat franchise. His backstory is that he's Johnny Cage's motion capture double and a truly worthless character.
See, I knew it wasn't crazy.
It's Mocap with a K. Mocap. Mortal capture. All right. Question number 2. True or false? Chun-Li was the first ever playable female character in a fighting game. True or false? Chun-Li was the first ever playable female character in a fighting game. All right. Let's see those yays and or nays. Is that a true, Dorian?
That's
a T. You're all correct. It is
get better.
true. Chun-Li was the blueprint. She's been in over 24 games and paved the way for some serious ass kicking, including one of the most iconic moments in Evo history. Just look up Evo moment 37 if you want to see some seriously awesome Street Fighter. All right. Question number 3. Which fighting game franchise has featured Yoda, Spawn, and Link as playable characters? Is it A, Soul Calibur, B, Killer Instinct, C, Dead or Alive, or D, Guilty Gear? Which fighting game franchise has featured Yoda, Spawn, and Link as playable characters? Is it A, Soul Calibur, B, Killer Instinct, C, Dead or Alive, or D, Guilty Gear? All right, let's see them, folks.
Put B.
I'm sorry. The answer is A, Soul Calibur.
Wow.
It's had a lot of special guest characters over the years, including Darth Vader, Kratos, and Geralt of Rivia, to name a few. All right.
So for your Witcher.
Exactly. Yeah, and then toss them out of the ring with a kick-ass combo. Question number 4. Before they settled on the name Mortal Kombat, the developers had several other names written down, but which of these was not on the list? Was it A, Dragon Attack, B, Death Blow, C, Kumite, or D, Code of Honor? So which of these names did the developers not consider for Mortal Kombat? Was it A, Dragon Attack, B, Death Blow, C, Kumite, or D, Code of Honor? All right. Let's see those wonderful answers, folks.
I don't know where I am on the camera, but
Yeah, I can't see. Is that a D,
It's a
Dorian?
D. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good answer because it's
Yeah.
correct. Code of Honor.
boy,
Code of Honor is actually a 2016 Steven Seagal movie that has a 26% on Rotten Tomatoes. The others were all potential options, but they did not come to pass.
I would like to point out that my mom never let me play fighting games, so I have no idea about any of these, but just wanted to
A
point
lot
that
of
out.
guessing happening here.
Look,
You seem like you know them all.
Kyle, I was
Soul
convinced.
Calibur was the only one I was like 100% on, and that's only because of like Zelda gifts.
Mm.
Look, I believe in all of you. Look, you were here in the battle arena of trivia, not Toshinden, so I think we can settle this peacefully with some good old-fashioned guessing.
See, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, I don't understand that reference.
They're just different fighting games. Anyway, question number 5. There is a Tekken live-action movie from 2010, and Japanese acting legend Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa plays the role of Heihachi. But what other fighting game movie has he starred in? Was it A, Street Fighter, B, Mortal Kombat, C, Dead or Alive, or D, Super Smash Bros. The Reckoning? So which other fighting game movie did Tekken star and Japanese acting legend Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa play the role of Heihachi in? Was it A, Street Fighter, B, Mortal Kombat, C, Dead or Alive, or D, Super Smash Bros. The Reckoning? Okay.
B. I put B.
The answer is B,
Let's
Mortal
go.
Kombat.
Let's go.
So Tagawa plays the evil sorcerer Shang Tsung in the 1995 Mortal Kombat film, the very first DVD I made my family purchase. And he also recently reprised his role as that character in Mortal Kombat 11. So nice bit of circularity there. All right, question number 6. According to Street Fighter designer Akira Yasuda, why is Blanka green? Is it A, the lightning that crashed his plane changed his skin color and gave him electric powers? Is it B, he drank from irradiated waters? Is it C, from an overconsumption of chlorophyll in plants? Or D, it just looks cool? So why is Blanka from Street Fighter green, according to designer Akira Yasuda? Is it A, the lightning that crashed his plane changed his skin color and gave him electric powers? Is it B, he drank from irradiated waters? Is it C, from an overconsumption of chlorophyll in plants? Or is it D, it just looks cool? All right, let's see those answers, folks. Okay, Kyle, you wrote B.
B. I wrote irradiated waters.
It's a D.
B.
D.
I'm sorry. Oh, D. Well, that's not it. It does look cool, but that's not the answer. The answer is unfortunately C, from an overconsumption of chlorophyll in plants. Apparently, just chowing down on jungle plants will completely dye your skin green. And also, Blanka's real name is Jimmy. Fun fact.
I had C too, and I was like, that sounds stupid. Let me go with D.
Yeah, it does sound stupid. Welcome to fighting game lore. Oh my gosh. All right, question number 7. True or false? There is a Star Wars fighting game that lets you play as a Tusken Raider and a Gamorrean guard. True or false? All right, let's see those. You got 2 options. Let's see them.
Wherever I am, that's where I am.
Is it true? Okay, the answer is true. Star Wars Masters of Terrascasi was a 3D fighting game from 1997 for the original PlayStation. You can play as Luke, Leia, Han, and everyone's favorite Stormtrooper, a Stormtrooper. Just a Stormtrooper. And I think we got to see some of these Terrascasi style martial arts in Solo, a Star Wars story, if I'm not mistaken, with Kira, but I might be wrong there. I'll have to double check myself. I remember all those true Terrascasi heads losing their minds when that movie came out, but maybe that was just me Mandela affecting myself into making this feel like more than it is. Anyway, question number 8. What fighting game has a jazz-heavy theme song titled I Want to Take You for a Ride? Is it A, Street Fighter Alpha, B, Tekken Tag Tournament, C, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, or D, Samurai Showdown? So what fighting game has a jazz-heavy theme song titled I Want to Take You for a Ride? Is it A, Street Fighter Alpha, B, Tekken Tag Tournament, C, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, or D, Samurai Showdown? I'm so mad this question's in here because that is burned into my brain for all time. It just plays on a loop, and it is never ending. All right, folks, let's see if you can guess the source of my deep-seated psychological trauma.
D.
C.
The answer is C, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Now, anyone who's played that game has definitely got this just stuck in their heads. I urge you afterwards, go look it up on YouTube and just see the audio hellscape that's been playing in my brain since the early 2000s or whenever this game came out. All right, question number 9. True or false, Street Fighter changed the name of 2 characters in Street Fighter 2 for its American release. True or false? Street Fighter changed the name of characters in Street Fighter 2 for its American release. All right.
Oh,
Did you write false?
yeah.
The answer is unfortunately true. They famously switched around the names of M. Bison, Vega, and Balrog to avoid legal issues from Mike Tyson. My guess is that M. Bison and Balrog also they had their names swapped. Okay, question number 10. Which of these is not one of the many, many ninjas in the Mortal Kombat franchise? It is just chock-a-block with ninjas. Tell me which one of these is not a ninja. Is it A, Rain, B, Ermac, C, Noob Saibot, or D, Striker? So which of these characters is not one of the many ninjas in Mortal Kombat? Is it A, Rain, B, Ermac, C, Noob Saibot, or D, Striker? All right. Let's see those answers, folks.
D.
Unfortunately, yeah, well, D is the answer. It's Stryker, who is actually more of a traffic cop in the Mortal Kombat universe compared to the rest of them. But the others, they're all ninjas, basically just palette swapped characters with unique move sets. So we actually, our supercomputer has told me we have a tie between Kyle and Preeti. So you have a tiebreaker question.
Okay.
Oh no. Oh no.
I'm sorry. Who played Colonel Guile in the Street Fighter live action movie? Was it A, Jean-Claude Van Damme, B, Sylvester Stallone, C, Bruce Willis, or D, Kurt Russell? Who played Colonel Guile in the Street Fighter live action movie? Is it A, Jean-Claude Van Damme, B, Sylvester Stallone, C, Bruce Willis, or D, Kurt Russell?
Yeah.
You were both correct. And much like a fighting game, I'm just going to declare this a tie. You were both co-winners.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Yay.
Look, we only have so many questions there. It was also Raul Julia's last on-screen role. He took a role as M. Bison in that movie as a nod for his kids who loved Street Fighter. So RIP to an acting legend, Raul Julia. Go watch Street Fighter if you want to. It's your life. Anyway, it's now time for our 30-second soapbox. Preeti, as one of our co-winners, you get to go first. So what do you have for us?
Sure. Well, it's the holiday season, so if you are looking for a gift, you can buy either Avengers Assembly, Orientation, or A Jedi You Will Be, which are both available in bookstores. You can also check out a new podcast that I just started called Tarvalin or Bust, which is all about the Wheel of Time. My friend and I are launching and rereading the entire series, and we just started, so you have time to catch up.
I am so excited for this podcast because I just started book 6 today, Lord of Chaos, on audiobook for when I'm walking my dog, and I'm all in. I'm super ready for the Amazon series. So if you haven't explored the Wheel of Time universe yet, join this podcast. It's a great way to get involved in that universe and learn what all the hype is about. So thank you for coming on, and I can't wait to check out more episodes. Awesome. All right, Kyle, as our other co-winner, you're up next.
Well, first and foremost, please check out all of our great year-end content, all of our Mandalorian related theories and things on Nerdist.com. Everyone's doing a great job, and just go check out our stuff. But in terms of personal self stuff, I actually have something I want to promote, which is for the last 7 years, I've been doing a podcast called Doctor Who: The Writers' Room, where we took a look at old classic Doctor Who via the writers and the stories that they wrote. And we took about a 2-year hiatus from Doctor Who and did other television shows and things like that. But next month, January 15th, our monthly show comes back where we're going to talk all about the new series of Doctor Who, starting with the Christopher Eccleston season. So if you are into Doctor Who but don't care about the old stuff, we're going to finally tackle some new stuff, starting with Christopher Eccleston and going forward from there. Eccleston, Tennant, Smith, and Capaldi are all on the table, and we will be talking about those real in depth as we often do. So you can find that at Doctor Who: The Writers' Room on anywhere you get a podcast.
Fantastic. I can't wait to hear you tell me what the hell was going on with all of those mannequins and that CG. I'm very curious.
Great. That'll be episode 1.
Even better. Even better. Awesome. And last but not least, Dorian, what do you have for us, man?
Nothing much. You make sure to just go check me out on Geeks of Color. I have a great group of people working with me, and we pump out great content. So make sure to check us out over there. We have some great stuff coming up. Can't talk about it too much, but yeah, make sure to check out us up. We have a newsletter dropping in January. We have a podcast. We're relaunching our podcast in January as well. So thank you guys for having me. Extremely honored. And make sure to go check me out on my personal Twitter, Dorian Parks and Rec. I just tweet random stuff, mainly talking about Age of Shield, but have a good time over there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Thank you all of my panelists for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who tuned in at home. And make sure you check out today's episode of Nerdist Now, because we have 6 Keanu Reeves cyberpunk movies that you should watch before Cyberpunk 2077 drops later this week. And yes, as we mentioned earlier, Johnny Mnemonic is definitely one of them. So with that said, we'll see you back here next Monday for a brand new episode of Nerdist News Talks Back at 2 p.m. Pacific, live on Nerdist YouTube channel and Geek and Sundry's Twitch. Until then, stay safe, be healthy, and have a great day. Bye-bye.